Agencies Drinking Beer is brought to you by Proposify, software that helps agencies streamline their proposals in the cloud and get faster sign-off.
Welcome to the 20th episode of Agencies Drinking Beer. On today's program, we're going to chat with Andrés Max. He's a UX consultant and the founder of Ideaware, and he's going to teach us how to define and communicate your vision to build a killer team. We should show the listeners what your computer looks like, because the letters are all worn off from, I don't know what kind of acid you put on your fingers. There's like gunks of just shit all over your computer.
Yeah,
man.
and then my dog's always freaking hair everywhere. There's hair all over it. I gotta shave.
Wonder why it doesn't work.
I have to shave my computer about twice a week.
I know, for a Macs are such beautiful products, and this just looks like just a hunk of, something you find on the WALL-E, the movie, or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's call it WALL-E from now on.
That is it. So other than this, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, actually.
Yeah, that's good.
Looking forward to this podcast.
We'll have an interesting interview coming up with Andrés Max, which is a very cool name.
It is.
It's almost as good as Joe Power. I used to work with a Joe Power.
Really?
I think it was made up.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we'll be chatting with Andrés very soon. But before that, wanted to just chat about this week's blog post. Was one that I had published, and it's all about selling your agency. Do you know anything about that?
Oh.
You ever sold an agency?
Yeah, when I saw the title, I got a pit in my stomach, but then I worked through it.
Why is this? Why'd you get a pit?
Yeah, that was a low. There was enough sold businesses before, but we made a lot of mistakes with this one. One in particular, technology worked against us here. We should never have done this back and forth emailing. We should have all been in a room with our lawyers negotiating. Even if it took a few in-person meetings, we should have definitely done that.
Yeah. So to back up and kind of tell people the story, this was about almost 2 years ago now. Hard to believe, hey?
Yeah.
We decided we'd been building Proposify in Headspace, our old agency. Decided, we couldn't really do both effectively anymore. We had to kind of shit or get off the proverbial pot. And we had to find a buyer. So that step one. That's a hard thing to do. And you kind of led those efforts of trying to find people who were in the business of selling an agency, or people who wanted to buy one. So we went through a few. Yep. We had a few meetings with potential buyers. How did you even come across those? Without obviously giving away specifics.
I had to be very careful because we were in a very small marketplace. So that could have really hurt the brand if people knew we were on the market, and no one really did.
I remember we had a kind of a pseudo competitor, who ran a much bigger web design agency, who was kind of interested in buying it to, I guess, add to his own, complement, I guess, his own bigger agency, or maybe just getting rid of a competitor. That didn't really go anywhere, but that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it was. I had a few meetings with him. Nice guy. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. We could talk for hours on this.
So the post that I had wrote talks about, first of all, why do you want to sell? I mean, for some people, it's just purely financial, or they just want to get out of the game. I think agencies in general, I think even small ones, have a bit of a shelf life, Like it's not a business you can run until you retire, is it?
Some people do.
Some do. But it burns you out after a while.
Yeah, it takes a special person to do that for decades.
Yeah. It's a tough business. But I mean, I'm trying to think, like, most of our listeners who run agencies and listen to this, is that something everybody wants to do? Is it something that you kind of, like, we didn't start Headspace with the intention of selling it. It was always just more of a lifestyle thing at the beginning, and then it sort of turned into, what's an exit strategy?
Yeah, you and I were always on the same page, though. We knew we wanted to build products pretty early on. We're going back to late 2010, early 2011. We had a couple of products on the go, and then Proposify really started pique a lot of interest with our demo, our prototype. And yeah, we had to just basically make a tough decision at some point. I think for a while there, I know we both looked at the 37 Signals model and we thought we could do what they did.
Yeah, it's hard to bootstrap a SaaS product while running an agency and do it all really well.
They did it.
Well, they're smarter than us.
Maybe, but they also were in a different market too.
Yeah. And why, like, agencies are generally harder to sell than maybe other businesses because, and I say this in the post, like compared to a brick and mortar type of business where you've got tangible assets like maybe a building and products that you've bought, like inventory and that sort of thing that's actually worth something on paper, or even like a tech startup like us that's just very scalable and you don't have to add a lot of people to the business to make it very profitable. Like agencies are kind of a different beast. I quote, looking for his name here, just give me 1 second, edit out this gap. So a guy named Peter Levitin, he wrote in a post and he said, "It isn't easy to sell a company where the assets walk out the front door every day at 6 p.m.
Yeah, I like that.
And that kind of illustrates why it's hard to sell an agency, is because there isn't as much tangible there to sell. Like, often it's the owners who are the primary salespeople and they bring in the leads. So kind of what do you have to do, or what do you have to build in order to actually sell an agency for profit, mind you?
It's hard all the way across the gamut. For it parallels other challenges, which is trying to secure a line of credit or get funding or bring in investors. It's the same thing. And the second that we created a product and made that commitment, it's amazing how everything changed.
Yeah. And I think for some people, like we've talked to Jason Swank in the past, who had sold his agency for I think a lot more than we did. And he did a few things right. And we talked to a lot of people on this podcast who have specialized knowledge about like a particular industry, and that's across their whole company. It's not just like the owner isn't the linchpin for the business. So the whole agency has a lot of experience in whatever it is, tourism or startups or the legal industry or whatever. We've had some of those discussions. So I think that's one thing. And the other thing I think is the ones who have a really tightly defined sales process, like essentially it's a repeatable formula. They don't have to rely on the owner to sell and bring in new work because they've got like an account team that already knows the playbook and knows how to bring in new clients, so they can apply that.
Yeah.
And then the other one's recurring revenue. If you have like even, if you sell a lot of retainers, that becomes a lot more attractive to a buyer. But if you don't have that, it's very difficult to sell.
True.
And actually a stat that I found when I was doing this post was that 1/4% of agencies get sold.
Wow.
Now, I hope that stat's true. I don't really have... I couldn't find where that research was done or who did it, but let's just pretend it's true or assume it's true.
Well, it seems to make sense.
Yeah.
From what I've seen around here. When's the last time you've seen an agency, other than ourselves, sold in this marketplace?
There's some of the older ones, like back in the kind of mid-2000s when the web was sort of still a novelty, or at least web design agencies were a novelty. Some of them got bought by bigger traditional
for that
agencies.
Reason, because they were specialized and they didn't have those chops.
Yeah. But I wanted to touch on something else you said about lawyers and meetings. So we'll kind of fast forward down the road and we've got interested buyers. Part of the thing that made it so hard for us, I think in general, selling a business is just going to take months longer than you think. It's hard to do it. Well, you said it's been quicker for you in the past for other businesses.
Yeah. Well, we won't mention any names. We got strung along by one of the partners. He was, we won't go into detail, but he wasn't a very nice person, and he wanted to see us flop and kind of swoop in and grab it cheap. So then he was gone, and then we had another one in there, his partner, who said he was going to step up and hold his end of the bargain up, which ended up being a lie as well. So we had to rework everything, and then we did finally find a really good buyer. It was a challenge, but the guy running it now is excellent.
Yeah, and it's most of the same team as well.
Yeah.
So
so
that worked out. Really
it all worked out well. It's just painful to get to that point. More painful than it should have been.
Mm-hmm. So I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments. As far as, do you want to sell your agency, and if you have any questions on how to do so, and if we can't answer it, somebody smarter will. So let's jump into our interview now with Andrés Max. Hi, we're here chatting with Andrés Max. He's a UX consultant and the founder of Ideaware, which is a 7-figure agency working with Fortune 500 companies and startups all over the world. So thanks for being on the show, André.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
Awesome. Excited to chat with you. And you're in Colombia right now.
Yes, in Colombia. We have offices down here and another office in San Francisco where we do a lot of our work.
It's awesome. Do you go anywhere cold like Canada, or just is it always hot where you're at?
It's usually hot where I'm at. Never any place below the 70s, so.
Kevin, translate that. What is that?
I'm very jealous. The 70s, yeah, they're all metric up here, dude.
Yeah, I don't know what 70s is.
That'd be about,
you're boiling, apparently.
That'd be about, the coldest to get is the 70s. That's around 15.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
We go by metric down here too, so I just have an immediate translator now since.
Yeah, definitely.
But, yeah, it's nice.
That sounds fun. So, I guess we were just going to a lot of stuff we want to talk about on the show today. But I guess before we get into the topic at hand, I mean, you've done amazing work, design work over the years. I've seen. What app is that? I have a Dribbble. I never use my Dribbble account, but you've got one where you've actually posted your work.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of work on Dribbble. We work with a lot of companies and a lot of agencies, and well, we've been all over the place on many apps, marketing apps, sports apps, and yeah, it's fun and great work. Been doing everything from product strategy, UX, UI, which is what I enjoy doing most, and that kind of turned into a company after a few years.
Cool. So how long have you been doing like UX and design?
I guess for the better part of 6 to 8 years now.
Yeah.
So I have a background in software engineering. I am a developer. I studied development back in the day. I still do development here and there.
So what they call a unicorn.
Well, you could say that. And I started getting a big interest towards design back when I was in college and university. So I dove into that. Started doing like crappy design work at first.
We all do.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, you kind of get polished, you develop an eye for it, then it turned into kind of my biggest passion. And I said, hey, you know what? I'm done developing apps. Now I'm gonna start really digging into my passion, which was UX and UI design. So that kind of naturally developed into me building a network around that. And I started consulting for companies around the world.
Cool.
I worked for Mashable for a few years, doing revamping their old website and apps, and a lot of ideas they had at the moment. You kind of see all of that work in their current site and their current apps.
Sorry, I was just going to ask about Mashable, because that's a site I frequent quite a bit, and that's a huge site. I mean, lots of traffic, lots of content. What's that process like? Like when you had to redesign Mashable, was there a lot of decision makers? Was it a very lengthy process? I mean, how did that all work?
Yeah, it was one of my biggest challenges at the moment, because when I came on board, there was a very small design team, and everybody was making the decisions. So if somebody from marketing or sales needed something, it was just immediately blurted out into the site without no reason whatsoever. So at some point they had this Frankenstein site where everybody just was slapping on icons and buttons and ads and everything. So the biggest challenge was getting everybody on board that there had to be a decision process and a style guide and everything that you had to go through to make a change in the site. And since it's a traffic-driven site, most of their income is based on ad sales and Google AdSense. One of the biggest the biggest factors in there for the decision makers was people who were driving those kind of sales. So in the end, it was structured that they pulled all of the decisions because obviously it's a company that needs to run. So it was kind of hard balancing out, okay, this is there just because this is driving a certain amount of traffic that actually turns into so much profit, but then this is horrible UX. So we need to improve this, and how can we improve it to actually drive even more traffic and more profit instead of just completely eliminating whatever's just not working. So I guess the biggest, as I said, the biggest thing was getting everybody on board that it had to be a process, there had to be a guide, there had to be a style sheet to follow.
Yeah, over the years I've worked on, not quite sites that big, but, comparative sites, I guess. And ones like that where they're very media driven, like, especially like an online magazine or a major blog or publication, like you've got to try to please not the reader first, ideally you would want to please, but then you've also got to please advertisers and please like the people who are actually running the site and making sure it's easy for them to update and all that kind of stuff. So I guess how did you prioritize those, and how did you kind of focus on all those groups at the same time?
Well, how do you prioritize? Well, obviously, income and profit is going to trump everything else. As much as the wish list I had and the team had, if it wasn't driving any sort of driving towards a company goal, to driving more traffic and revenue, because the goals were there, that kind of always took priority. So we just kind of found ways into find the problem or find the goal or find the metric that we wanted to follow, and then gear towards that in creative ways. It kind of nailed down to having a process. Okay, what's the problem you're trying to solve? What's the metric you're trying to improve? Let us do our work, and then we'll come up with a proposal. The way it used to be before that would be, okay, the sales guy or the marketing person would go, okay, this is not working and I need more sales, I need a button there, so please add it there, and that's it. So kind of eased it out, just establishing a little bit of a process in which we propose ideas and then we got everybody on board with the idea, instead of just having this non-designed person actually explore it out there.
Yeah.
So at what point so you run a company now called Ideaware, and it's an agency. Tell us a little bit about that and how you went from working at other companies, or how did you grow and start that agency?
Yeah, it's a funny story. I was consulting almost full time for Mashable at that point, and I was still getting all this requests for design work and people reaching out. I need an app, I need a website, or I need you to improve my current experience. It's horrible. So I kind of started reached out to fellow designers and people I knew and said, hey, I have this project, it needs to be done, I don't have the time for it, can you help me out? And most of the people I reached out to, yeah, of course, I'll help you out, let's do that. So then I had hired like 3-4 people. This one, they were consultants, and they were helping me out with all these side projects. And then at a certain point, it kind of turned out into, we were 6 months and 8 months in, and we were just receiving more projects, and we had already like a steady base of clients that we're working with. And I decided, okay, let's turn this into a company. One of my goals was to have a company and be my own boss before I was 30. So this was kind of happening when I was around 28. So I said, oh, here's my big chance. I've already done basic market validation. People are reaching out to me. Here's a service that people are finding useful. So came out with like 50 company names, settled on Ideaware, and just incorporated. And by the time all of this happened, Mashable already had like a bigger design team. They have an awesome team right now. So I kind of stepped out and said, yeah, I'm going full time with Ideaware now. It's been great working with this team, but I kind of have this big thing that could happen now if I just focus more on it. So I went ahead and did that, and since then I hired a bunch of people, and growth has been steady year over year.
That's great. So I mean, it sounds like it came about because you started as just a few freelance jobs and then grew into, more and more people wanting to hire you. Good problem to have. Who was your first hire? Like, what kind of role did they play? Did you hire a designer first, or a project manager, or someone?
I hired one of these unicorns who are designers and front-end developers.
Yeah.
I remember his name was Brian. He was great at design work. He also did HTML and CSS and everything. And basically he took over all of this extra work I couldn't handle, and it was just knocking it out of the ballpark. And
That's
then
awesome.
I started hiring designers after that as well.
Yeah. And at what point, or do you still do a lot of UX work for clients, or has your role kind of changed, over since you've been running it, to doing, kind of doing more of the operations and the sales, or kind of what's an average day for Andre look like?
I wish I could tell you it's still UX UI. But yeah, it's running operations, it's running sales, and it's running lead gen for the company.
But that's a good thing, really. I mean, it sucks if you really like what you do and you'd wish you could do it, but I mean, we talk about this a lot, how it's really important if you're a designer or a developer, somebody starting an agency, you really at some point just have to kind of hire yourself out of a job.
Yeah, basically that's what I did, and I fought it for the longest time. I always kept a project that it was mine,
You don't want to lose your chops,
Yeah, exactly. So I fought it for the longest time, but then I realized the company was just not growing enough because I was spending all of this time executing instead of focusing on growth and setting company mission and the vision and everything moving forward. So I kind of stopped at a certain point and just focused on business objectives and goals to the company.
So let's talk about vision then. What I guess first of all, what is your vision for Ideaware?
My vision for Ideaware, well, it's been changing over the past few years, but at this point, I have a goal to help 5,000 companies turn their ideas into profitable venture. Anything that we can help with our design and consulting services.
Awesome. And sometimes you talk to small agency owners, or even bigger ones, and they don't have necessarily a clearly defined vision like you do. How important do you think it is? Is it to have a really clear idea or a really clear vision for your company?
For me, it was one of the most important decisions I've made. Early on, everything was kind of organic. So whatever project came along, whoever via word of mouth or anything just kind of recommended you, then you got a new client. And it works. It's slow growth, but it's not measurable. It's not something you're actively pursuing. So setting a mission kind of bridges that gap where, okay, where's the company now? Where do I want it to be? Who do I want to help? And seeing it every day, I have it in a big printed out cardboard. And the team sees it well. Seeing it every day kind of sets the mood for a day. Okay, if I want to get here where I want to be, I need to close all of this 20 deals I have in my pipeline over the next few days. I need to go ahead and reach out to more people. I need to produce more awesome content for people to find me. It kind of gives you goal and a sense that you're getting somewhere every time you see that little number go up.
Yeah, I suppose because you can, in the day-to-day course of running a business, there's so many little decisions about, do we go after this client, or, should we offer this, or all these little decisions you need to make. But if you have a clear vision and goal like that, then, it becomes simpler to go, okay, well, does this move us closer to that goal, or does it take us further away?
So yeah, exactly. So you nailed it. I mean, one of the most important things as a business owner, an agency owner, is always be working on something that's going to move the needle. There's stuff you may be doing that you think is going to be productive, or you think is going to helping the company when it's actually not.
Yeah.
So now having like a framework, like what the mission, what your vision is for the company, then you could just filter it through that. You'll say, okay, this is going to help me get there. This won't. So then it's a basic decision maker as well for your day. Suddenly you're doing more productive work. You're getting more leads in. You're doing more work that you like. And you're less stressed and enjoying more what you're doing.
Yeah. I remember we were just in Montreal about a month ago for Startup Fest, and who was it who gave that talk? I can't quite remember the name, but he was talking about the vision statements for a lot of the biggest sort of startups that you think of today, some of the biggest ones out there. And one of the ones was Uber, and they said that their mission statement or their vision statement is that they want to make transportation as accessible or as easy to access as running water. And they kind of went through all these different startups and what their vision statement is, and their point being, I guess, to go along with yours and mine, is if your goal is just to make money, if that's all you're striving for in your business, then what do you do once you start making money? Where does the company go? You've kind of reached a limit of, okay, well, now what do we do? But if you've got kind of a bigger goal, then it always keeps you, yes, you're making money, yes, you're profitable, but it kind of gives you that next step to go after.
Yeah, it's true. And well, obviously we're all in it to make a profit, and we need to make a living. Money is usually one of the big things where everybody starts a business, but I think down the road, if you're making enough for the company and yourself, you'll see at a certain point that there's something missing. Something missing as okay, there's more than I need to provide. There's all this experience I've had now building 200 products so far. I can actually leverage that to actually help people, not just designing, but also seeing how to take it further. So it's kind of also giving back a lot of what you learned, and staying true to what you wanted the agency to be, right? It's definitely not an easy road. We all have our ups and downs. We all have our great months. We all have horrible months. But as long as you stay focused, I think that's one of the biggest things you need to keep in mind. I remember about maybe 3 years ago, a lot of people started requesting, a lot of our clients started requesting development work. And I said, okay, let's not just lose all of this business. And in my head, it would make sense if, okay, I'm going to take on the development work as well, and we're going to be millionaires by the end of the year. It didn't happen. Actually, something weird happened. Our profits started slowly climbing down. When I looked back at it, I said, yeah, what's going on here? I mean, I'm selling more. I'm supposedly have more people now, but it turns out we weren't the best at development. So our development projects weren't very profitable. And that was around the time we decided I need to set a mission and a vision for our company. Where are we going, and what do I want the company to be? And I need to share this with everybody. What do I don't want the company to be? The agency is to be a development shop. Yeah. I do want us to be the best people you could hire to do UX design, to do your product strategy. So it was kind of so clear at that point, and everything has just taken off since then.
Yeah, Kevin and I are looking at each other. I mean, when you're running an agency, it's so tempting when people come to you with, bags of cash. They, not usually bags of cash, but they come at you with like a budget, and they're like, hey, I need some video work done, or I need, I don't know, some like physical, what do they call it? Like an exhibit or something done. Or, there's so many services people come to you. Oh, you do design, so you must also be able to do like, I don't know, this bus vinyl or something like that. And it's tempting we all want to do that. I think it's a natural inclination. Is like, okay, well, I could find somebody to subcontract this to and still make a few bucks off it, and then you end up, it just pulls you away from really growing the company, because you're just constantly trying to get whatever you can get. And I can totally see where that would go with how you could do that with software development or even just web development, because development projects are really complicated, and managing scope creep and it's a nightmare. You brought me back to bad times.
Yeah, I think it's. I work with a couple of agencies as well, and it's one of their biggest pain points. I mean, it's easy when somebody just walks up to you and says, "Hey, I have money. Do you want it in return for something?" And then you say, "Yeah, I could just hire somebody and they'll do it real quick and make a few bucks." But in the end of the day, what happens is you'll be so busy handling all this stuff that's not what you wanted to do. It start to make you miserable. And then you lose your focus. You should be doing lead gen. You should be reaching out to people. You should be providing awesome content. And then you don't have that time to do any of it. So that small project that you took on the side that's not aligned to who you are actually took so much from you by taking so much time that it's not even worth the return.
Yeah. Amen. I hear that.
Absolutely.
So you've got a clear vision of your company and what you want it to be and what you want to achieve. Now, how does that impact who you hire?
That's a great question. And it's also a great filter to your hiring process. Because you'll clearly see people who are aligned to where you're going and people who are just there for any other reason. Sometimes you make bad hires where people are just not cutting it because they don't have the skill set. Sometimes it's they just want a desk job. And in the end, you need your company is your team. If your team is not putting out the best they can every day, and you don't have people you could trust to delegate all of this project, you're just close to them and trust them to execute them flawlessly and keep that client happy, then you're going to have a hard time going somewhere. And I've been there. I mean, it's not like neither I'm perfect during hiring because I've made a lot of mistakes, and it's not like Ideaware has been a perfect company from the start. I mean, I've been through all of this, and it's a constant process. It never ends, but it helps you. It helps you to know who your customer is, who you want to market to, who you want to work with, and what kind of projects you want to bring in the door. Because then everything filters through that before it actually gets to the company as something you need to work on.
So, I mean, a couple of things there. I always think that with an agency, really the people, I don't think this is a revolutionary statement or anything, but people are your product. It's not, you're not really selling user experiences or websites or apps. You're selling essentially the process of making them. And, when a client works with somebody who's really good on your team, I mean, they associate that person with your company. If I'm working with a designer from Ideaware, then every interaction I have with that person, even if they're an employee, a manager, an owner, whatever, that is kind of what I think of that company, right? So in a lot of ways, it's a representation of your product, of what you sell, of your company. So it's so important. What would be kind of like a bad example? What would be an example of somebody who isn't the right fit for Ideaware, who wouldn't be a good hire generally?
Somebody who wouldn't be a good hire. Well, for example, I guess somebody who just comes on board and they're just in it to get the best out of what the company's doing. Because 3 months from now, all they wanted to do was get your process, get your client base, see how you're doing it, and just basically start trying to start a very similar company and reaching out to the same clients you have. So it's in the end people who didn't want to be part of the team, who maybe they were never meant to be part of a team. Maybe they were entrepreneurs, but they just took the wrong road in approaching a company and trying to just steal knowledge and everything for your own benefit. So I guess, I tell this from experience. It happened to me once. And there are better ways to go around and ask for a fellow company owner or entrepreneur. Everybody's willing to help you out if you ask nicely. Everybody wants everybody to be successful. And then there's also that person who's just in it just to make money for the month. And they have 1,000 freelance clients on the site, but they wanted the steady income as well. So you'll see them walk in the morning, tired, big bags under their eyes, and they wouldn't get anything done. And they just repeat it week after week, and then it's a pattern that you start seeing, and you say, hey, this person is definitely not aligned with my vision. He's not helping me. He's putting more work on me because now I'm going to have to design or review 1,000 times any of his work or her work. This person's not aligned to our vision. He or she needs to go. Definitely, they're more on the freelance side and less on the team side of things. So it also helps kind of seeing those patterns and those people who are just, they're focused on something else, and it's fine. I mean, everybody has their own thing. Everybody has their own personal and goals. But the people who you bring on board need to be people who are helping you get there, and especially people who you can learn from. I mean, I try to bring people on my team who know something or many things more or better than I do. If I can learn from them, then they're providing value to me and to the company. If all I'm doing is bringing somebody on board that I have to teach him or her everything, then it's just going to be more of my time towards that instead of my time pushing the company forward.
Oh, totally. You have to hire people smarter than you. And some people don't because, I don't know, maybe it's just they don't want to pay people too much, or some of it's ego, I think. You know, like some owners don't want to hire anybody who is better at them. If they fancy themselves a marketer, they don't want to hire someone better because that person might make them look bad, or I don't know. That's just generally speaking, but hiring people who are better than you will push the company further. You're adding that, all their experiences, all their knowledge, that's getting added to your own resource pool.
Especially in my case, I'm about 20 years older than everybody here, so I tend to hire people younger and smarter than me, especially in technology.
Well, yeah, and I mean, kind of what you were touching on there, Andre, about people kind of phoning in their performance every day. They come in, punch in, do enough to not get fired, essentially, and then leave. There's no passion there for the work. And I think that's, whether it's an agency where you're doing client work, kind of service model, or like a product company like ours. I mean, one thing that we look for a lot in anybody, whether they're developer, designer, whoever, is real passion, not only for their craft, but also for what we're doing. Like if somebody starts with our company, but they're not that excited about the product, and they're not, they don't have that like obsession to make it better, or to serve the customers better, or to make their own mark on it, they just wouldn't be a good fit. And I would think it would be the same with you and with Ideaware, is like you want UX designers who are passionate about doing incredible work.
I'll tell you, I don't know if you've had this happen, but it happened once when we had the agency. We had actually someone thank us for firing them because they said they couldn't keep up. This dude's probably working in some government office spitting out WordPress sites.
Yeah. Well, that's funny, and it's good that you mentioned that. Definitely, I mean, people who are around you, they want to see you succeed, even if the company owner, they know if you succeed as the founder, if you succeed where you are, they'll succeed because you'll always be pulling everyone forward with you. And this is a mentality I see sometimes. Some companies and some startups approach it wrong, where they see employees as just employees, and they're just replaceable, and that's it. These people, you'll have a really hard time getting to help you get where you want to be, because that's all they'll feel like part of a cog in the machine. And if they don't feel like by putting out their best work, they're pushing the company forward, they won't do it. So that's going back around again. That's also why it's so important for everybody in the company to know what your goal is, what your vision is, what your mantra as a company is, and everybody who wants to and who's up for that will help you get there. And And there's also this thing that I'm a big believer in having a great work culture. And I believe that the happy employees will help you build those relationships you have with your customers. And in the end, that will help you immensely create more profit and growth for your company. If they're unhappy and they don't know what they're doing, or they're just sitting on a desk job, you're going to have a real tough time pushing forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of goes back to that idea of people being your product. In a way, maybe that doesn't sound flattering, because like, what am I, a product? Selling. I don't mean it that way, or like you said, a cog in the machine. But when you realize that the people are really what you're selling to clients, you're not. I mean, you might have a process and whatnot, but really, what is the client buying at the end of the day? They're buying your team.
It's the
They're
business
renting
model.
out your team for you.
It's the model. It's fine. You can,
So just like if you have a physical product, or like in our case, a digital product, you pour all the energy you can into making that product the best it can be, just the way you would with a team. And agencies are the same way. Like, you invest in your team because that ultimately is what your client is buying from you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's definitely right. You're definitely not just selling design hours. You're selling more than that. You're selling your know-how, everything you have behind you.
Yeah.
Totally. How important is great work, or just the quality of the work when it comes to running an agency like yours? How do you, I guess, let me rephrase the question. When you're selling design work, there's a tendency or a temptation to kind of turn it into a little bit of a beauty contest, and you want to impress clients with like, oh wow, that looks like a really pretty design. But obviously, and we all know that there's a lot more to design than that, and there's the whole story behind past projects you worked on, the case study, the problems you were trying to solve, and that's harder to communicate, I guess. So how important is visually pleasing work in your portfolio when you're selling to clients, or how do you kind of judge what is great work and what's not?
So visually pleasing work makes you stand out from a lot of I don't know, thousands of agencies around the world. It makes you stand out. It makes people want to share your work, and it definitely gets people through the sales funnel. Your next customer one of the main reasons they reach out is because they liked something they saw on our site. And customers are usually looking for somebody with experience in what they're building. So we have on our site a couple of different verticals and different examples. And every case study that we have there just basically turns into a mini sales funnel. So people will reach out, they will say, this is beautiful, I want to talk to you guys. And that's what gets them in the door. Beyond that, what I like to provide our clients is pushing the boundaries. And you're not just receiving a UI UX designer for hours, we're going to try to make you successful. How? Because we have the experience doing this, and we have worked with these 10 companies who've had multi-million-dollar exits, and from all those engagements we've gathered all of this knowledge that we'll kind of put together for you as well, and in any way we can, we'll try to make you as profitable as we can. So it's kind of what I'm getting at is trying to provide more value to what they're buying. They're not just buying hours, and this is something you can't put a number on. How do you measure that tidbit, that small thing you added that you know is going to convert more, or that small advice you get the client that you know is going to get them somewhere? You can't. It's in there in the design. It's in the deliverable. It's in what you and your team put together, but you can't measure it. So you find ways to put that and provide that as return of investment for the client. And then there's also the customer experience. I mean, you could be blasting out the most beautiful designs ever, the front page on Dribbble every month, but if you're giving your client a crappy customer experience. If you're not answering phone calls, if you're not answering emails, if you're just treating them wrong, they won't be your client for long.
Mm-hmm.
So true.
Yeah. So it also goes in nurturing that client relationship into something else as well.
So what do you mean? Nurturing the client relationship into...
Well, one of the biggest things I've found out, and I try to share this with everybody who I talk to who's in the same space, and they kind of agree as well, is sometimes somebody walks in the door and says, hey, I need 4 screens for my prototype for an app. They say, okay, this is going to be a week worth of work, 2 weeks worth of work, whatever it is, it's going to cost you this much. But you do the work, it's awesome, they felt great working with you and your team. Next week, they'll come back and they'll say, hey, the prototype went so well, we're going to build the whole platform and the app and together with you guys. So you didn't only deliver great work, they also felt great working with you. They'll call you back. So it's kind of, once they got in the door, you don't have to sell them hard on something else. It kind of flows naturally if you're giving more value and if they feel like it's awesome working with this guy.
Yeah. It's some of the agencies and I mean just any company in general that gives bad service, they're making it harder for themselves to sell next time, because they're just, okay, you got that week's worth of work and you just churn through it and got it done and billed for, but now you've got to spend double the effort to get new clients, whereas you could have sold to an existing client. It's so much easier to sell to an existing than to try to find a new lead. So it's a great sales strategy. Yeah. How do you find you're talking about great work and just those little extra details that make the project that much more successful? There's always, I found with service, always a balance between doing what you think is great but also trying to stay within the budget and not delivering so much that you just your budgets and your timelines are off balance. Do you have kind of any secrets or tricks for making that easier to balance?
It's always a struggle, and it's always one of our biggest struggles is keeping projects within budget. Because it goes both ways. Sometimes the client wants more, but they don't have any more budget for it. And sometimes the team just gets so excited with the project, they want to do something really awesome, and then it's just much more time that we have allocated for the project. So I think the best way I've found around it is set very clear expectations for both the team and the client, and make sure everybody is open with everything. So for example, sometimes we do strategy sessions or kickoff meetings if we're not doing strategy, where everybody sits down in the same room, or conference call if we're not in the same country. And say, okay, this is what we're doing. We're doing this app, this many screens. Our goal is to convert these people who use the app into this A or B. And we have this amount of time to do it. So this means we only have 2 or 3 iterations per screen. And this means we need to get feedback from you, the client, at least every 24 hours, or else we're putting the project's timeline and budget at stake. So just being open with the team and the client, and having everything obviously written down so you can just go back to it and refer to it if necessary helps a lot.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Andre, I want to thank you for being on the show. Awesome chatting with you. And
yeah, no, it was great. I didn't say much, just took in all that great knowledge. It was great. Awesome.
Thank you guys for having me here. Always a pleasure.
Very cool. Well, you have a great rest of your day.
You too, guys.
There we go.
We're recording.
Andre the Giant.
Yeah, I don't know if he's a giant or not. It doesn't say on his LinkedIn profile if he's a giant. He doesn't look like one.
No. Anyways, we'll edit that out.
He's a giant of UX.
Yes, Andre
we
the
don't
Giant.
have to edit that out. What are you talking about?
Andre the Giant of UX.
Remember Andre the Giant from Princess Bride?
No.
No?
I was thinking Andre the Giant, the wrestler.
He was in Princess Bride.
Really?
He was the big giant in that movie.
I don't know if I
Do
saw
you
that
remember
movie.
Princess Bride?
I don't think I saw that movie. I know.
Classic. Classic.
Captain Movie Buff. Captain Movie Buff.
Man, okay, I want anybody who's listening to this, I want you to give Kevin shit for not ever watching Princess Bride.
Okay. Yeah. I'm ready for the shit, man. Actually, tonight I'll watch it.
Andre the Giant was in it anyway. Very quotable movie. So you want a really long conclusion for this episode. You wanted to should we do about a 20-minute one?
Yeah, let's just do some ranting.
No, you have somewhere to go. Where are you going after this?
Actually, some good friends of my in-laws from England are here. He's actually a musician, bass player.
Cool.
Yeah, played with some greats in the UK. So we'll probably get a little jamming in tonight later on, but they're having a family barbecue.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's a beautiful
I'm
night
jealous.
for it. Yeah.
I want to come.
Well,
am I invited?
I'm sure you can stop by. The in-laws love
You're
you.
just being polite.
No.
I'm not invited.
Bring the boys.
They told me I'm never welcome. All right, well, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, then rate and review us in the iTunes store. Send in your questions. We need questions.
We do. Where are the questions, man? Come on.
Nobody
Come
has
on.
questions.
Yep.
Or they just do and they don't think we can answer them. Anyway, until then, we will see you next time.